I'm talking to Paul Becker, who's the founder and president of Blue Water Vacation Homes. And also, if I believe you're involved, a member of the San Diego Short-Term Rental Alliance. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to be talking about short-term rental regulations, specifically in San Diego, and the implications, the real-world implications, not only on your business, but also on the industry in your region. So maybe if you can start by just telling us a bit about your business. Where does Blue Water Vacation Homes fit into the vacation rental picture?
Certainly. So we just had our 15th year anniversary. We started here in central coastal San Diego, and that's where we remain, about 100 properties or so. We focus primarily on second homeowners. San Diego is a destination for vacation renters as well as owners of vacation homes. And so we primarily focus on managing those homes when the owners aren't using them. And we probably, I think, moved a little more upscale and luxury in our offerings for our branding and our niche in the market.
So if we talk about the short-term regulations, if I understand correctly, it's been about a year since the regulations have been implemented in San Diego.
Yes, they went into effect in May last year. Yeah.
May. So do you want to tell us a little bit, bearing in mind that none of us on this side live in San Diego, tell us a bit about the gist of these of the laws, and also what the feeling is about them at the moment. How are people feeling about these regulations?
Yeah, so this was a long, drawn out, I'd say, battle maybe between the people that are anti-short-term rentals and then people like me who are pro and property owner rights and things like that. And went through the city council and many different iterations of the city council and different mayors. And they finally got to the point where they did a compromise ordinance where they allowed short-term rentals to exist. However, they put a cap on the number of short-term rentals at 1% of the available inventory in San Diego for whole home short-term rentals. There's a carve out for one area, Mission Beach, where they offered more, but that has in essence capped out in Mission Beach, where you cannot get a short-term rental license or a whole home in Mission Beach, which is one of the biggest short-term rental markets in San Diego.
Okay, so this has affected a lot of people in the industry in that area. So what is the feeling? How do the short-term rental owners and managers feel about the regulations at the moment?
Well, for many years there were bad actors that were giving us a black eye. Certain party houses through, and with the advent of Airbnb, there's a proliferation of short-term rentals in most markets. San Diego is not excluded in that, but the problem, I think, became that there was a lack of enforcement of existing regulations, noise, and other ordinances that we already have in place. Our opponents, raised a bunch of hyperbole and a lot of pressure on the councils to do something, but in essence, it should have just been solved with enforcing the existing regulations. But we as an industry wanted some clarity, certainty, so we were okay with the regulations as they were proposed. And I can't speak for everybody, but the ordinance is not perfect, and it does hurt some people, and it does affect people with some real ramifications on the values of their properties. And I still don't believe that the enforcement mechanism is in place that would have solved this to begin with in San Diego.
So maybe just if you expand a little bit on that. So it affects the values of their properties. And so who exactly does it affect and how?
Where it really affects it is when in San Diego, this is one other thing, is they listen to opponents that wildly overstated the problem. And so when San Diego came in and put a cap on the number of short-term rentals in San Diego, they missed it by about half. So there were plenty of licenses left over. Mission Beach actually had hit the cap, and a lot of people that were doing it for many, many years didn't get a license. They lost on the lottery. So in Mission Beach, what that means is if you have an owner that's been doing this for 10 years and they built up a ton of repeat guests and they built revenue streams for their property, when they go to sell that home, that license is it's not transferable. And so the new owner can't short-term rent. That means the value of all those guests that they built up, the value of that property is gone. And it becomes just a regular long-term rental, which a lot of people don't want to live in Mission Beach long-term because it's a vacation community. It's a college community. There are long-term residents too, but it's been a healthy mix for years. But right now, because those licenses are not transferable, it really does affect the value of those properties when they come to
And
sell.
so how many people are affected more or less? What are we
Well,
talking?
excuse me, you still can't get a license at all if you didn't get one. There is a waiting list. As people sell, people that didn't get one can move up on the list, on the original list. And that's the way that they're doing it for now.
Okay. And so if you could have your sort of your dreams come true, or how would you like to see the regulations changed or enforced differently? What how would the STR Alliance, for example, want to see this situation amended?
I think one of the things comes into license transferability. I think that's really important. And I think understanding the license a little, or the enforcement mechanisms a little bit better. I don't think that's been a real clear process. The city tracks all the licenses through Airbnb and VRBO, and that's fine. I think everyone should register and license. But I would really like to see a transferability. And if you short-term rent, you shouldn't have a cap. As long as you're following those rules, you've registered, you're paying your TOT taxes, you're paying your license fee, you're a good neighbor. We don't feel that there should be a cap, where the solution was to put this cap in to, I guess, appease our opponents and maybe the hotel lobby too, for competition purposes. That goes against our property rights. And we can get into that, but from my feeling is you can't cap this. It's really the market will find its natural stasis. We've already seen a drop in demand, drop in rates. Some people are getting out of the business altogether, and that's free market, and that's how this should run, as long as those homes are managed properly. And the enforcement mechanism needs to be towards any homes that are being nuisances in the market, over occupied parties, extra trash, things like that is where they should be focusing on. But the cap is.
And what about I don't know if they're using the same argument to justify the regulations in terms of, addressing the housing shortage or the problems in the housing market in San Diego. I mean, do you feel that the regulations are helping with that at all?
No, I think it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, an argument. I think it's easy to throw it out there, but most of these homes that have licenses are in more upscale coastal communities anyway. They're not affordable to begin with. They're not going to solve the housing problem. That's a long-standing issue as far as permitting, land, NIMBYism, all kinds of things, and that's not just, it goes everywhere. The number of short-term rentals do not affect that.
Sure. All right. So you talked a little bit about how it's affecting, license owners and those people who could not get licenses. Maybe you can quantify a bit more about, I don't know, specifically your businesses, how it's affected your business in terms of revenue, in terms of growth, or maybe strategies that you've had to change as a result of regulations.
Yeah. So for that example, if I have a homeowner in Mission Beach that sells their home that I've been working with for 10 years, and it's been a big part of our revenue as a company, that home's gone. I normally would work with the new owner, would buy it. They'd hear from the existing owner. Blue Water took care of them. This is what they do. We'd be interviewed. And since we already had a good book of past guests, it'd be an easy transition to a new owner. We wouldn't lose that inventory. At this point, we lose that inventory. So it does affect us in our ability to grow in the market. Outside of Mission Beach, there are still licenses available in San Diego, and those will be eventually, taken up, and they'll hit that cap. Our strategy has basically been to grow a little bit outside of San Diego. So we've moved up the coast a little bit, and I'm just looking at other markets just to make sure that we have not all our eggs in one basket. But again, all these different markets have, a patchwork of regulations. This is something that we're going to have to deal with no matter where we go.
Yeah, I guess that's what that's why we're doing the interviews everywhere, because it seems like it's a matter of time before similar regulations at least are happening everywhere,
You're
isn't
right.
it? So you're not going to be able to avoid it. But what do you think is the long term kind of better solution? Is there a better solution? Can you really actually influence the local council negotiations, and if you stand together as a group? Have you seen an impact in this regard?
Well, long term, yeah, I think that's where the San Diego Short-Term Rental Alliance comes in, and that's again, we're a ton of individuals. There's about 1,000 different reasons why people short-term rent their house, right? And it's transitory also. For one time it may be this, and next time it may be that. But to get all our voices as one and really let the elected officials know that, yeah, this is affecting us. This is something that we need to push back on. Like almost any industry that has lobbyists, we're going to have to stand up and have our voices heard and be counted. And that means becoming a PAC and affecting voter, I guess, having our votes heard. And that means who we're going to back, if they're for fair and reasonable regulations or they're for a complete ban. And there's people that would prefer, as you see in New York and other places where we were banned altogether. Hotels would love that. But if we're not all together and we're not fighting, for lack of a better word, I see this continually becoming worse and worse. It's already happening in town councils locally along the coast where they're trying to change the ordinance and make it even more restrictive. They're not happy with the compromise. They want, even though there's no noise complaints. I mean, it's like laughable how many complaints are in short-term rentals right now, even compared to long-term rentals. There's way more problems with long-term rentals, but that doesn't matter. They're trying to push those, get those more and more tighter. So again, fighting back, making sure our voices are heard is going to be the most important thing for the long term. I really feel this is, again, back to a property rights issue. I don't think there's a difference between renting for 29 nights or 30 nights or 3 nights or 30 years. You're renting a home, it's residential use. And I, as a home, should have the right to rent my home. If you're going to ban short-term rentals, then I think you should ban rentals altogether. But that's a bigger conversation. And I think that may eventually get to state levels. And who knows, it may get to, Supreme Court levels at some point. But it's easy to paint us with a brush of we're bad, we're hotels, we ruin neighborhoods, we ruin housing. And those are the easy arguments, but we have to be stronger as a group to have political will heard.
And at this point, would you recommend to people in San Diego who are thinking about entering the industry to do something else or go elsewhere? What kind of advice would you give them?
I think there's still plenty of business here. It's not like it was before, but this is one of the best things about this industry. It allows somebody who manages their own Airbnb or their own vacation rental to go ahead and take over for a friend or take over for an elderly couple that doesn't want to do it. And they can create a niche in their market. They can be good operators. They can make money, and they can help guests come to San Diego and experience what we're doing here. So I think there's room for more. Absolutely. Do I want more competition? No, but that's okay. I've got my own niche and I don't need it all. And there's plenty of good operators besides myself that are out there. And I think that's healthy to have more people coming into the market.
Okay. And in terms of preparing for, maybe in markets where they haven't got so many regulations yet or haven't got regulations, how would you advise other property owners or property managers or owners to prepare for the onslaught of regulations, other than advocacy? I suppose advocacy is the obvious thing, but is there anything else they can do to be more prepared?
Maybe learning from other municipalities and cities of what happened, but really knowing that if they're not regulations that are coming, if you already have regulations, you're always going to have to worry about mission creep and getting tighter and tighter and tighter as far as your ability to operate. So I think communication between the homeowners and management companies, sharing best practices, I wouldn't say shaming other operators, but if there's somebody who's a bad operator, as a group, you have to reach out to that person and hopefully get them to at least be reasonable so it doesn't create a black eye for the rest of the operators. I really think, to your point, though, in other municipalities, really everywhere, we're going to all have to join together in local and state and maybe a national organization for our industry that is really focused on advocacy. We have other organizations, but I haven't come across a true quilt that we need to make of all these different municipalities that need to act with one voice and again learn from best practices, etc. And that's where I see the future. We're going to have to band together.
Band together, fantastic. Yes, absolutely agree. So thank you very much. And sorry about all the problems we've had, but we made it happen. So I really appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time as well. And really, this is important what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a nice weekend.
You do the same.
Thanks. Bye.